Mr Speaker, I think it's no surprise that Phil Twyford comes into the House this afternoon and mounts a sterling case for the job of Station Master at Britomart after the next election. Anybody who saw the front page of the Herald this morning will know that 5 members sitting on that side of the House are gone at the next election. And Mr Speaker, a question has to be asked about why is the opposition so bad? Why are they not getting traction with the New Zealand public? David Shearer comes out this morning and says they've spent the last 5 weeks talking about the things that New Zealanders want to talk about. That would be the opposition to the casino, the GCSB matters, the Peter Dunn issues, the increased taxes on the properties that New Zealanders might own, and then their manufacturing inquiry, which basically concluded that if you took out all of the growing parts of the manufacturing sector, the rest of it was failing. Mr Speaker, it's that sort of misconnection with the people of New Zealand that is leading to the result that we saw in the Herald poll this morning. No one gets too excited about that on this side of the House. Our pledge is to continue with the job of governing, getting on with making sure that the growth engine of the New Zealand economy is fuelled by our policies. Mr Speaker, the Labour Party may well want to gloat that somehow our decision to put a timeline and some conditions around our support for the rail link in Auckland is a win for them. The reality is that we have always maintained that we would be looking at a whole of an integrated transport network for New Zealand's largest and fastest growing city. And New Zealand is littered with examples of how there's been a failure to future-proof, and so we think 2020 for that loop, the construction, the extension of Britomart would be the right thing to do. Mr Speaker, that will come with some conditions that will be announced by the Prime Minister on Friday. But also, Mr Speaker, we have the extensive rollout of broadband across New Zealand, and we're seeing all sorts of innovations in our economy, taking advantage of that and anticipating the advantage that will come from that. We're also seeing across the legislative program the business growth agenda, simplifying the activity of doing business of New Zealand, meaning that there is a greater opportunity for job creation and for higher wages and salaries for New Zealanders. We've seen, Mr Speaker, the Honourable Chris Finlayson engaged in one of the most rapid settlement of treaty issues ever undertaken by any minister, and that, sir, is good for a large section of our population, and we fully support that. We're also very committed to the rebuild in Christchurch. Those are the things that New Zealanders do talk about. They are the things that they look to a government to be doing. They are the things that they look and expect a government to be providing. And Mr Speaker, we have another big announcement tomorrow around Christchurch, where we're talking about the conclusion of the cost-sharing agreement between the Christchurch City Council and the government. That will mark a significant point for stepping up the rebuild of that city. I look forward to joining the Prime Minister when those announcements are made about midday tomorrow. Mr Speaker, on Friday, the Prime Minister will address a number of issues that are in the Auckland Plan and outline the government's response to those things. Mr Speaker, transport is part of that, and the rail loop is just a small part of that. There is going to be some very interesting announcements made in that speech that will be well received by Aucklanders and demonstrate this government's commitment to, in fact, New Zealand's biggest city, a day after we've made a big commitment to New Zealand's second biggest city. Mr Speaker, throughout the country, there are transport programs that will oil the wheels of economic growth. And then, sir, if you look at social services, the work that's going on in the education sector, the extraordinary work of Tony Ryle in the health sector, and, Mr Speaker, so many other areas where the government is simply getting on with the job, and it's not hard to understand why New Zealanders are not connecting with a party that is focused entirely on the office boy issues of the Beltway, the GCSB, Mr Dunn, the so-called inquiry into manufacturing, opposition to everything that's about growth. My final comment, Mr Speaker, for Mr Twyford is I thought he of all people would by now have realised that every loop has a U-turn in it.
Te ora rā, Flavel.
Tēnā koe, Mr.